best I could, and my voice was really struggling. So what I did is I went over conceptual questions. In other words, people that had questions about content. And then today I pulled up a prep to have all of our example questions. Can you do an example of this? Can you do an example of that? Okay? So my point is that I encourage, I'm not the kind of teacher that tells you put your cell phones away, put your camera, bring it, record as much as you want, and then replay it and go over it, okay? So that's how I broke it up. Your Wednesday lecture that's online is conceptual questions, and today is all going to be about examples. Now, I do want to say in the feedback, someone said, why didn't you go over the things in the book? And from my perspective, I'm not saying I'm always right, but if I always ride the bicycle for you, you're never going to learn how to ride the bicycle. So my intent is for you to have some questions that you can practice on, and if you're not quite sure, come talk to me, either before class, after class, or during class. Right? But if I go through it and do it every time for you, how am I? And I'm not fussing at you, I'm just explaining my rationale. Okay? So, guys, I set it up, man, step by step by step. What motion external force trying to cause in that picture right there? If you turned off all the muscles in the whole body, you just went limp, what motion would happen at your ankle? Dorsiflexion. Do you need your dorsiflexors if you're going to stay up on your toes? No. You need what for plantar flexors, right? So that's your agonist. Now that you've identified who's working because you understand why it's working, all you got to do is associate the motion you may observe with the muscle group that's turned on above resting tone to do a job. So if you observe dorsiflexion and your plantar flexors are turned on, it's going to be through eccentric work. And you go up on your toes, you may observe plantar flexion because of those plantar flexors concentric work. So that's what this is there for, man. This is there for you to kick off those training wheels and I guide you step by step, man. I guide you to the path to develop confidence with all these examples, okay? But that's why, technically, we did go through a lot of these in class. But that's why I didn't just literally step by step by step. I want you to kind of go out on your own in your small groups and kind of work through these and try to figure that stuff out, okay? All right? I'll do one more, and then we're moving on. External force in this one is trying to do what to your elbow? It's trying to flex you, right? Did you text me? Did you email me? God dog it, I asked y'all to text me. External force. I showed him who's boss. You're never going to do that if you ever want to. External force is trying to flex your elbow, right? Do you need your flexors? Do you need your flexors? Do you need your flexors? Guys, it's a yes or no question. You don't need your flexors. What would happen? Someone on the feedback said, well, what about speed? I'm confused about speed. Guys, this is just the whole speed thing. It's just common sense. What would happen if you used your flexors? If the machine's already trying to flex you, and you used your flexors, you sling it up in the air. Does that make sense? You have two things trying to bring your hand up. It's logical that you need your extensors in this exercise to hold that position for the photo, right? Your extensors working isometrically to maintain this position. If you observe flexion, what would be the type of contraction? If you observe flexion, what would be the type of contraction? Eccentric. Going once, going twice, sold. If you observe flexion, it would be through eccentric work. If you observed extension, it must be through concentric work. Guys, that's it, man. I don't know how else to put it. Okay? I am not going through all of these. You're taking the test, not me. Okay? Question on the feedback sheets, the Usain Bolt analogy. Right? Again, speed. I don't understand speed. I don't understand speed. I don't understand speed. I get it, but you understand a lot more than you give yourself credit for, is what I'm trying to get to. If you can even do a process of elimination. If he was running like this, his extensors would be working isometrically to hold that position, right? So you could just do a logical elimination, all right? What if his extensors were working eccentrically? It would lower it down. Well, what if he turned off all of his muscles? Then flexion would happen at the speed of gravity by itself. So the only way to make flexion happen faster than gravity is to pull with muscles that are pulling you forward. Those are shoulder flexors through concentric work. Yeah? Unfortunately, those shoulder flexors can't speed you up and push you to a stop. Okay? So those shoulder flexors are going to speed up the flexion through concentric work and then eventually turn off to let the extensors put on the brake, slow down the flexion through eccentric, speed up the extension through concentric. There's the plyometric sequence of your shoulder extensors. And then when you come back this way, those extensors can't push you to a stop, so your flexors are going to slow down the extension, speed up the flexion. And you're just going to cycle. You're going to have a constant cycling of eccentric, concentric, eccentric, concentric. There's no cruise control there. You're trying to flex and extend as fast as you can. There's going to be speed ups and slow downs. What am I stretching? What am I stretching? Okay? So don't look at, even though we can talk about motion from the pelvic girdle's perspective, we talk about muscles from the trunk and hips perspective. So the pelvis may be spun to the left, but the trunk is spun to its right. Yeah. So if my trunk is twisted to the right, that means I shortened the right pullers and I lengthened the left pullers. Does that make sense? So I'd be stretching the left transverse trunk rotators, the muscles that pull my trunk this way. What are those muscles? Who cares right now? In biomechanics, I'm going to teach you right external oblique, left internal oblique, left rectus spinae, sometimes left latissimus dorsi, depending on the graduate program you go to. But the concept is that it's the muscles that pull your trunk this way are getting stretched because you're in this position. Whether you move your trunk to the right or you move your pelvis to the left. It's the same stretch. Cool? Okay. This would be the same concept, but different position. Be stretching to the right. Okay? Same concept, different position globally. It's a similar local position change, but a different global. So don't get trapped by that. Oh my God, she's upright. Everything's different. No, nothing's different. Actually, everything's the same from a local perspective. She is twisted to her left, so she's going to be stretching the things that pull her to the right. All right, this was a super duper question. Question was, what if we did jumping jacks upside down? I was like, I love it. Let's do it. Okay, so let's call her Cindy. She goes from giving birth, yoga position to trying to jumping jacks as she can. She's just like as fast as she can. So let's also infer that there's going to be no collisions over the top of her head. I know that's a locally referenced concept, but No collisions up here, no collisions down there, okay? So if she's trying to do as many as possible, does gravity offer her enough speed by itself? You see what I'm trying to get to? Right? In other words, she could relax everything and her arms are going to act up. But if she's trying to do it as fast as she can, gravity alone can't make it go that fast enough. She could go faster, is what I'm trying to say. Now, she can't go faster by using her adductors. Her adductors involved in abduction through eccentric work have to happen slower than what gravity can offer. The only way she can make it go faster than gravity is to pull in the same direction as gravity. Abductors, concentric work, speeding up that abduction, making it go fast. The same muscles that speed her up can't slow her down. So she's going to turn off the abductors, turn on the adductors, which you're going to put on the brakes through eccentric work, change her direction and speed up the abduction through concentric work, plyometric sequence. Gravity could slow down her abduction, but again, at a very, very slow rate, a very fixed, not optimal rate. So if she's trying to put on the brakes of that abduction faster than what gravity can offer, she's going to have to turn on her abductors to slow down the ad, change her direction, speed up the ad, and cycle back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. What a diabolical question. I love it. Okay, this is someone asked for a hip example. I like this picture because it shows you, all right, hamstrings, but that's a group within a group. I mean, those are specific muscles: semimembranosus, tendinosus, biceps femoris, long head, and the gluteus maximus. So instead of saying all that stuff, and instead of just saying hamstring when there's other things working, we just conceptually understand that those three muscles of the hamstring and the gluteus maximus pull in the direction of hip extension. Make some hip extensions. The hip extensor group all of the muscles. So I'm not disrespecting the hamstrings. I'm respecting other muscles that might be working with the hamstrings. Does that make sense? Okay? So external force trying to do what? That machine is trying to flex me. And unless I want to kick the plates with my foot, I probably need to use muscles that pull in the opposite direction. If I observe extension, extensors, extension, concentric work. If I observe flexion, extensors, flexion, eccentric work. If I observe no motion, extensors, preventing the machine from flexing me through isometric work. That's the job theory. Okay. Also, guys, I've been very clear with you. If I don't mind if emergencies happen to be late, but I asked you to text me because I keep checking my email 2 minutes before class starts. Okay, I've communicated. I'm not fussing at you. I'm just reminding you that the easiest way, but not the easiest way, but protocol way of letting me know is via text. Because I'm checking my phone right before class starts, but I'm not checking my email right before class starts. Okay. We're good? Someone asked about plyometric examples, man. Let's do some box jumps. And we analyze motion joint by joint. We analyze muscles joint by joint. So I think it's fair we can look at hip, we can look at knee, we can look at ankle. So let's look at hip first. We'll work our way down. Where would the plyometric sequence most likely be for those hip muscles? When he's up at the top of the box or when he's down on the floor? On the floor, right? On the floor. On the floor is when he's going to have to slow down his flexion, change direction, and speed up his extension. Eccentric to slow you down, concentric to speed up. Or another common sense way to look at it is, where is it the toughest? It's toughest when you jump down and you gotta stop yourself and make yourself go up. Think of it like this: if anybody's ever been on top of a ladder and someone tossed you a tool at the tippy top, it's easy to grab it because it literally, gravity slows you down. That's what's happening here. When you're jumping up, gravity is slowing you down, and then you just kind of drop on the, thanks, planet Earth. But when you jump down, your muscles have to slow you down, turn you around, make you speed up. That's tough. It's tough. Once you're in the air, slowing down is easy. But when you hit the ground, slowing down is not so easy. So the same concept for the knees. The plyometric sequence is going to be when he's on the ground. So for the knees, it would be the knee extensors slowing down the flexion, speeding up the extension. For the ankles, it'd be the plantar flexors slowing down the dorsi, speeding up the plantar. Good. Now, would there be potentially a little micro plyometric sequence at the top? Yeah. But the way I would word it is which one would be more significant, which one would be tougher, which one would be greater. Because when you jump at the top, you're not coming down very fast, so there's not a lot to slow down. That's like coming to a stop at a red light or a stop sign when you've only traveled 1 mile an hour. It's not a lot of effort. Not a lot of innovation. All right, where are we at? We're cruising on. Is this helpful? Is this being helpful? Okay, someone asked for some machine examples. Ask and you shall receive. Okay, so rapid fire. Who's working? Who's working when I lower my feet down? Who's working when I'm bringing my feet up? So it's the knee flexors the whole time? Yeah, the knee flexors the whole time. Oh, that tricky Campbell. Nah, man, it's not tricky. You need them to work the whole time because that machine's trying to extend you the whole time. The machine is trying to extend your knees whether you're flexing or extending. If you turn off everything at any time, you're going to be engaging those knee flexors. Now, again, why don't you just say hamstrings? Semimembranosus, semitendinosus, biceps femoris, popliteus, sartorius, gracilis, gastrocnemius, popliteus. I mean, there's a slew of muscles. And when you only name one, remember the movie Coco where you have 2 deaths? You die, and then when no one remembers you, you die again. Right? There's 7 major ones. There's some secondary and tertiary that push it over 10. But if you only name one, if you observe knee extension, what does the work have to be? Yeah. Now, that's not to say any time you see extension, that's just for these parameters, for this exercise. This is the hand you're dealt. What would happen if he turned on his knee extensors through concentric work? What would happen? He would literally pull the back part of his shins away from the back. He would kick. He would pull it away. And the weight would, makes no sense. So again, you can even do process of elimination. Sometimes the easiest way to know what's working is know what shouldn't be working. Who do I not need? Which option is not needed? I definitely don't need those extensions. Feel free to ask any questions at any time, guys. I'm just trying to get to as many of these as I can. All right. Twisty. Someone asked about plyometrics of the hips. It's kind of a tough one. We typically don't keep our feet on the ground when we're moving around. In other words, like when I'm swinging, I might be using my internal rotators to speed up, but when I get to the end of the motion, I kind of let my foot off and it kind of goes along for the ride to help me slow down. So it's kind of tricky. So for this one, I set some specific parameters, right? You're gonna be twisting, you're gonna be using pelvic girdle rotation because of the hips, and you're gonna keep your feet on the ground. You're gonna prevent your feet from going along for the ride, okay? So start, finish. So he's gonna have left transverse pelvic girdle rotation. Nothing's trying to make that happen. He's gonna have to use concentric work to speed up the left transverse pelvic girdle rotation. I know that had to be because of hip motion, hip muscles. So let me just associate what motions I'm having at the hip. I'm having left hip internal rotation, right hip external rotation. So it has to be my left hip internal rotators do concentric work, right hip external rotators do concentric work. What speeds up must slow down. So after I speed up, I need to slow it down. So my internal rotators are going to turn off. My left hip external rotators are going to kick on to slow down the internal rotation. From my right hip's perspective, my external rotators sped me up, so my internal rotators are going to slow me down, change my direction, speed me up. Now then I'm going to turn those off, turn the other ones on to slow me down, speed me up, slow me down, speed me up, slow me down, speed me up. Same concept. All of these examples are the same concepts, just applied differently. Not applied different to different exercise. It's the same concept. Same concept. Obviously, there's going to be certain parts that are easier and tougher. That's why you do so many where you turn the ball this way, then you turn around and move all the other way to try to balance it out. You know, they look way too happy doing that exercise. All right. No motion, isometric, maintaining position, doing a job to prevent motion. Identify who's working at the trunk and identify who's working at the cervical.
If you repeat this.
All right. At the trunk, it is the right lateral trunk benders. And at the cervical, it's the left lateral cervical benders. Right lateral trunk, left lateral cervical. Any questions? Say it again, Jake. Yeah, I said there's no motion. That you're working to maintain this position. Absolutely. Right lateral trunk, left lateral cervical. Now, if he lowers himself down, right, to bring his hips to the ground, what type of work would that be? Eccentric. Eccentric. The sentence would read, well, my right lateral trunk benders need to be on, and I observe the left lateral trunk bending. When I lower my middle, you imagine him bending to his left. Eccentric work must be. And for him to bring himself back up, that's concentric work. Right lateral trunk benders, right lateral trunk bending, concentric work. It follows the same rules, just applied to different parts of the body. Now, why is it his left lateral cervical? Well, there's nothing to bridge his head. So his head, if you relaxed all his muscles, would just fall over. Does that make sense? So in other words, the external forces here, we call it a three-point bend in mechanics. You have the ground pushing up here, you have the ground pushing up there, and you have gravity pulling down here. Those 3 points are trying to bend his trunk to his left. It's like if you take silly putty and stretch it, it's going to start to sag at the bottom, right? But all of those forces are trying to sag his middle this way, which would make him bend to his left. Any follow-up questions? All right, how about this one? Trunk and cervical. Ooh, we could also do knees. I think knees is pretty obvious. We could do hips. Hips is pretty obvious. Let's also pretend that his cervical was in anatomical position and then he moved to that new position. Let's play that game too. He went from anatomical to there. Maybe he was looking at the clock to see his time. Knees. Who needs to be on to keep this position? Extensors, absolutely. And again, you could do process of elimination. What if he turned on his flexors? He'd pull his feet away from the ground. Right? The ground is trying to flex him. He doesn't need to pull his flexors. What about the hips?
Extensors.
The ground is trying to extend him. Yeah, you need your hip flexors. You need the ones on the bottom. In other words, if he did, what's that, yoga pose? Like where you do like this. That's the gravity is trying to extend him. He needs to use those flexors, the bridge. If you think about it, the commonality is with the three-point bend concept, it's all the ones on the bottom. The extensors, hip flexors, trunk. What's at the trunk? Flexors, all the ones on the bottom, except for the head. The head doesn't have a three-point bend. Head's trying to flex, you need your extensors. If he went from anatomical to that position, how would those extensors have done the work to get him there? Concentric work. I look like I did the chop step. Now, shoulders, that's we don't have enough data. The ground reaction force looks like it's going pretty parallel to his long arm, but I could say definitively that his scapular muscles are probably doing a little work out here, right? Probably his protractors, maybe preventing him from retracting. In terms of his elbow muscle, same thing. I don't know where his pressure is. If he has pressure out here, then his extensors would be on. But if he has pressure right through the axis of rotation, then it wouldn't be engaging. Like in other words, if you're on your elbows, you could lift your hands up and like, all your forces on your elbows. So we don't have enough data to definitively say if his elbow extensors would be on or not doing a job. Y'all, I'm telling you, bro, when y'all go home for Thanksgiving, and y'all want to impress the family, pull up some muscle pictures. It'll brighten the party up, I promise. God blessing. All right. Scoot, scoot, scoot. To the left, to the left, to the right, to the right. So, some of these questions. Starting on the picture on the left, you bring it up to anatomical, then you lower it from anatomical, then you bring it back up to anatomical, then you lower it from anatomical. Like those are the kind of ways I can, layman's terms, ask questions. Okay? So on the test, you cannot ask, or you can, I'm just not going to answer it, but you can't say, is he doing left transverse trunk rotation? That's stuff you need to know. That's stuff I'm assessing your knowledge on. Again, that's why I have those sample problems in the book that I don't go over. They're meant for you to try on your own and then come to me if you have questions. Okay? So, just answer easy stuff first. What group of muscles brought me to anatomical position, starting on the picture on the left? And then what muscles lowered me or brought me from anatomical to the other side. So in other words, I'm on the right side. What brought me from the right, and then what brought me to the left. Okay, we're good? So all I'm asking you is agonist. We'll get to the work and we'll get to other stuff there. But for now, just ask you about who did we call? Again, guys, normally I'd give you more time, but I'm really trying to get through as many of these as possible. Left transverse trunk rotators bring you back to anatomical, and then right transverse trunk rotators to bring me over from anatomical. Left transverse to bring me up, and then right transverse to lower me across. And then those right transverses are going to stay working to slow down my left, speed up my right. I did a little plyometric sequence there when it came time to change direction because of eccentric followed by concentric. Then those right transverse are going to bring me up, and then the left transverse will kick on, lower me down to the right, plyometric sequence to change my direction, the concentric will bring me back up, and then you'll just switch back and forth over and over and over. Now, pros and cons, I'm not saying which one is better, but if you understand that I am limited by gravity's influence, right, that it can't change its direction. If you were trying to do an exercise that worked the left transverse trunk rotators through an entire range of motion, you're going to need to be creative because gravity can only flow down as we see it. So that's why you can go to the machines, reposition the machines so that you get in a position already twisted and make it go all the way across. And let it go all the way back. And make it go all the way across. And let it go all the way back. And then after you do a few of those sets, you reposition the darn thing to get in on this side. And you make it go all the way across. And you let it go all the way back. So, again, through true kinesiology education, that's the tools you guys will be able to have when you decide what exercises you're going to do, what's indicated, what's contraindicated. But man, we have to know who's working because of why they're working. Okay? Any follow-up questions to this one? I know, man, it's the struggle is real, but we push forward. Let's see if I can find this thing. So it's under the pink book. There it is. Yeah, I was struggling. the first sounds out of my mouth was my lung literally coming out to say hello. So this is, oh my gosh, give it a headlights. So this is where I try to address conceptual questions about contractions and about, one person asked, I'll answer it for you now, but do we need to know, how did they ask? It was a good question. I'm not making fun of the question. Do we need to know the terminology And the answer is yeah, right? I mean, you're gonna need to know things that I taught you, because I'm not, this is the best way for me to answer it, because I'm not telling you what it is on the test, right? I'm not gonna tell you what contractile components mean. I'm not gonna try to tell you what elastic components mean. I'm not gonna tell you what eccentric contraction means. I can't give you information. So yeah, you need to know those terms, or whether you want to call them, when we were younger, definitions. You just need to know what things mean, okay? You need to know what things mean. Okay, I know we move fast, but does anybody want me to pull up any of those examples that I went where we can talk about it more, or you have follow-up questions, or maybe there's an example, because some people, y'all, I love you. This is one of my favorite classes I've ever had, and I've been doing this since '06. But it brought some of your handwriting, so I just couldn't, I couldn't. And I had bad handwriting too, but I literally didn't know what you were saying. I took it to a priest, I took it to a pastor. They were like, I don't know what they were writing in tongues. So that's why maybe I didn't have your example. Maybe I just quite didn't understand it. But does anybody, guys, this is it, man. Does anybody want me to pull up a different example, or one of the ones that I did already that you want to follow up with a question, or from the book, the examples from the book that I put there for your practice? Does anybody want to talk about any specifics to those? Yes, sir.
Can we talk about an example involving the radioulnar?
Oh, absolutely. What a good question. Okay, guys, so the scenario is you have a hammer, and obviously the top part of the hammer has more stuff, right? So it's not counterbalanced. So let's pretend that you start off in a anatomical supinated position with the hammer, right? And you slowly bring the hammer up, and then you slowly let the hammer down, and then you slowly bring the hammer up, and you slowly let the hammer down. Now, how do I know, I say no, but how am I infer that it's slow? Because there's really no reason. It just makes my arm hurt if you think about trying to do that as fast as you can. It's an exercise. And for our test, all exercises are inferred to be slow and controlled. Now, some functional tasks are not slow and controlled, killing a mosquito, but if I say the word exercise in that question, and you say, are they doing it as fast as they can? I'm going to be like, I'm just going to walk away. Because I'm telling you the speed influence when I say that it's an exercise. You're doing curls, lateral raises. This exercise means not as fast as you can. Okay? So, is anything trying to pronate him when he's here? Is anything trying to pronate him when the hammer is on it? No, he's got to make it. He's got to make that pronation happen. He's got to make it happen through concentric work, right? You got to make it come up. Nothing's trying to make that hammerhead come up. You got to make it come up. Pronators are going to speed up that pronation through concentric work. And they're going to keep working concentrically until you tip it over to the other side. When you tip it over, when you go, think of it like this. When you go from, I know it's from a mechanical standpoint, when you go from 91 degrees to 89 degrees, you change what the external force is trying to do to it. Here it was trying to supinate me. But once I get it past positive Y, now it's trying to pronate me. So if it's trying to pronate me, I no longer need my pronator. Unless I want to slap the hammer down. So I'm gonna switch needing supinators to allow the pronation through eccentric work. Change my direction, eccentric, concentric, there's my plyometric sequence of my supinator. Change my direction, bring it back up through concentric. Then when I get from 89 to 91, now my pronators are working again, eccentrically and concentrically. Now my supinator is eccentrically, concentrically. So again, why is that important? We're playing chess here, guys. It's important because if all you ever do is this exercise, then you're going to be working two different muscles in two different ranges of motion. But what if you were trying to work your pronators in this quadrant? Then you would need to set up an external force, like maybe a manual resistance, so that way when they get halfway, they're still pushing against something that's trying to supinate. See what I'm getting to? Or reposition it where the external force is there, maybe they're on their side instead of up here, right? Maybe they're on their side where they have to concentrically work to. Those are powerful tools that you're going to be able to apply for the rest of your life. But if all you ever do is this exercise, I'm not saying it's a bad exercise, but it's limited to working two different groups in two different quadrants. You're not working the pronators in an entire range of motion, and you're not working the supinators in 90 degrees of motion. And muscles are angle dependent in terms of their strength. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to teach you guys? Okay. Was that a good one? Yay. Anybody want to go back? Follow-up questions? And I want to try to give you every second of your tuition. Last call? Yes, ma'am.
Can we infer plyometrics in every exercise?
Can we infer plyometrics?
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, yes. I'll give you some crazy examples of when it's not. Let's say you're doing, when you're doing exercises, you should have it, okay? Let me get that straight. But that doesn't mean you have to have it. And I'll give you some examples. What if this person lowers their feet down, right, through eccentrics, but he lets the weights hit at the bottom? Well, then his muscles didn't slow down that extension. Does that make sense? Or if you had a spotter, someone that helps you slow it down, or you go down on a squat and there's some safety bars and that slows you down. In other words, if anytime during the motion something else slowed you down, let's say I'm doing jumping jacks, and instead of stopping it with muscles, I stop it with collision. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, should it? Sure. Will it? It doesn't have to be. If something other than your muscles slowed you down, then that would nullify it. It's a great question. Really good question. Anything else? All right, guys. May the force be with you.